Welcome to another episode of Arbitration Life. I am Janette Brin.
And I'm Hana Doumal.
Human trafficking is one of those ugly things that is actually happening in the world right under our noses. In preparation for today's show, I had the opportunity to learn a bit about one organization working to do something about it. Justice Without Borders, JWB, otherwise known, creates transnational access to legal assistance for victims of labor exploitation and human trafficking, so that they can seek rightful compensation even after returning home.
So Justice Without Borders is indeed a very important organization doing much needed work. And I know many lawyers who are actually involved in supporting similar organizations and also doing pro bono work. Today's guest is an advisory board member of Justice Without Borders, having previously supported Justice Without Borders on a case settlement when she was in private practice. She currently practices exclusively as an independent arbitrator and mediator, and she is a member of Arbitration Chambers. A first-generation Chinese American raised in the US, she moved to Hong Kong as a Fulbright scholar in 2000 for a few years and then returned again in 2010 to serve as the Secretary General of the Hong Kong International Arbitration Center.
With almost 20 years of experience working in New York, Hong Kong, and Singapore, she's listed on the panel of the major arbitration institutions and has served as tribunal chair, co-arbitrator, and sole arbitrator in ad hoc and institutional arbitrations.
Please welcome Chiann Bao. Hello, Chiann. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Arbitration Life.
Hi, Hana. Hi, Janette. Nice to see you all. Really nice to be here.
Same here. So happy to have you on. So, Chiann, you are an advisory board member of the Justice Without Borders, having previously supported JWB on a case settlement when you were in private practice. Can you please tell us more about this role?
Yeah, so this role at Justice Without Borders is kind of one of my nonprofit extracurricular activities that really doesn't have very much to do with arbitration at all. But I came upon this opportunity when I was working at the firm and we were doing some pro bono work. And I really took to the idea of this organization and its mission, which is to support migrant workers, in particular domestic helpers, and provide them with legal services in litigation where they've been wronged by agents or employers. And so I worked on a case when I was at Skadden, and thereafter I became more, actively involved in the workings of the nonprofit organization and became an advisory board member. And, the role really entails kind of supporting all that goes behind nonprofit work, from fundraising to strategy to ensuring good corporate compliance, to ensuring that the needs of the clients are met and our relationships with the law firms are going well. And I have found it to be really rewarding to be able to do something kind of on the side of my arbitration work that, in fact, migrant workers certainly has helped me throughout my career in supporting my family. And so this is a nice kind of way to give back.
Oh, wow, that's so nice. That's so inspiring. Thank you, Chiann. And I hope, like many more arbitration practitioners, we know that those organizations are available and they are looking for support. So Chiann, you moved to Hong Kong as a Fulbright scholar in 2000. You moved there for a few years and then you returned again in 2010 to serve as the Secretary General of HKIAC. And you were Secretary General from 2010 to 2016. Could you please tell us more about that role? Maybe tell us your proudest moment there and the most valuable lesson you learned.
Yeah, thanks for that, Hana. I would say that I had not anticipated, going back to Hong Kong in 2010. I had a wonderful time when I was in Hong Kong the first time around, and I enjoyed every aspect of living in Hong Kong. But I didn't kind of expect my life to kind of turn full circle and come back until the opportunity came about in 2010. And that was probably one of the first times, or one of the more important times in my career, that I took this plunge or leap of faith kind of moment and got off that track. And it was certainly a risk. You know, I had been in New York with a newly married, looking for a house to live in and looking to start a family. And then this opportunity came about, and we took it. And my husband had never been to Asia before, and it was all sorts of an adventure. But I loved every bit of my 6 years there. I found it to be an incredible opportunity where I just learned so much about institutional work, about arbitration, about myself, in ways that I wouldn't have anticipated, you know, in a job like this. And I certainly don't think I would have gotten at a law firm. And so I think that it really kind of opened my eyes to kind of so much more that was possible in my career. In terms of kind of what I was, I guess, most proud of, or what lessons I learned, Hana, you made, I don't know if you'll remember back in 2010, but it was a very different institution. And I draw the audience's attention to Hana because, as we all know, she also worked at HKIC for some time after I left. But in 2010, it was a very different operation. And it was a matter of building a modern day arbitration institution. And what that looked like, there was no real template for. And I had never really hired before either, you know, so many firsts. And I think looking back, one of the things that I was most proud of was building a team, really developing young lawyers who were interested in arbitration, who were hungry for an opportunity, and really building that young community, and then seeing them go and do amazing things. I mean, similar as you are doing now. And that is something that I found most rewarding. And in a way, it was kind of reflected in certain acknowledgements, you know, the Queen Mary study. But the one kind of recognition that I would be most proud of that kind of captures that was that we were the most improved institution. And if you know anything about sports or ever have followed sports in your life, I think getting the MVP or like the most improved anything, I think is something that means something special. And so I thought that was something that I was quite proud of. In terms of valuable lessons, one of the things that this job taught me was that it has a lot to do with trusting your instincts and honing your EQ skills, because after all, I think we're in a community of very clever people. But this kind of role where you're in an outward facing position, you know, when you're constantly walking around in the center, people are stressed, there's a lot of tension sometimes, kind of being able to read people as you walk by them, and, you know, engage with them, and sometimes, you know, ask them for coffee. Those types of small gestures, in fact, go a long way. And I certainly felt that myself, but in fact, I got particular feedback through the years to indicate and support the idea that that really does go a long way in ensuring that, you know, the institution is cohesive and of one voice and really serving the user's needs.
No, absolutely. It's nice to hear about emotional intelligence. I feel like we don't talk about it enough. And it's everything in the workplace. And I can personally say that I met a lot of people who were working in your team, and they only said amazing things about you.
Thanks.
So Chiann, you've been a member of the Arbitration Chambers since 2018. What advice would you give to arbitration practitioners who are looking to become full-time arbitrators?
Yeah, taking the plunge into being a full-time arbitrator wherever you are in your career is a pretty big step. And I think those who have made less movements in life probably find it to be an even harder step. And I certainly know many now independent arbitrators who really saw that as the end goal, whether they were at a partner at a law firm or in a different position in their life, but always felt like they needed just a few more years or just a few more notches under their belts. And so when you're ready to take that plunge, it's very individual. But I would say that one of the, like, there's so many wonderful aspects of it. I mean, first of all, if you're the kind of person that enjoys creating your own kind of being entrepreneurial on top of, you know, being a good lawyer and all the rest, this is an ideal kind of position because you really get to craft your own career. And I mean, it is fundamentally a business. But also I think being able to think about who you are and what you bring to the community that's unique to you, and it requires a lot of self-reflection and also requires you to be quite self-critical. So I think there's a lot to be said about all of those different factors that go into play before you take the plunge and become an independent arbitrator. I mean, as for specific advice, I mean, I think being self-critical and evaluative as to who you are and what you bring to the table is important, and whether, you know, it's right for your family and your career at that point, because oftentimes it is kind of where you will be for the foreseeable future. It's not necessarily a stepping stone. And so I think there's a lot of thought that needs to go along with that kind of decision. But I have not turned back, and I've loved every bit of it. So clearly it was the right decision for me.
Thank you for that.
Now, Chiann, could you please tell us about your first appointment as arbitrator?
So my first appointment was a SEAC appointment, a sole arbitrator. And as with many first appointments, one party did not participate. Parties were not necessarily the most sophisticated when it came to dispute resolution processes or engaging in arbitration in particular. But it was really through this experience that I learned a lot about really the details of the process and to be able to preempt, you know, issues. And one of the things I think that an arbitrator as a case manager needs to be quite mindful of is 3 steps down the line, 5 steps down the line, and really anticipating each step of the way so that you are able to ensure that you can kind of keep pushing the process along. And so much of what we do, especially in the early stages of the arbitration process, is the procedural aspects, the case management, and having good organizational skills is something that will always be of great service as an arbitrator. And so that first appointment taught me the importance of that.
Absolutely. And to follow up on that, what is your favorite thing about being an arbitrator?
What I love about being an arbitrator are the people that I get to sit with. I always find, you know, my colleagues to be quite interesting and engaging. Learning about different industries, seeing different counsel, you know, advocate and present their case. Dealing with some of the trickier challenges from a procedural perspective. I really enjoy, you know, the procedural kind of crafting. And then finally, I love the feeling of having written an award. The process is oftentimes quite challenging, and you know, I think you grapple with it. But the satisfaction of kind of having this end product, feeling like you've gone through and really grappled with all the minutia of the case, is incredibly satisfying.
Definitely, I can imagine. And even having, if it's an institutional case, having the institution sending the final awards to the party and just be like, okay, this is done. Uh, that's great.
Now, you've also worked in private practice, I believe in Paris, New York, and Hong Kong. What was your favorite thing about representing parties in arbitrations?
Well, so I would say that private practice, I was primarily in New York and Hong
Okay.
Kong. During that time, I would say being on a team was fantastic. I loved the team that I was in New York, and I still keep in touch with them now. And being part of this kind of exercise of, building a case is something that I really valued significantly. And then later on, I think that one of the things that's quite satisfying is that you do realize at some point that you become an expert in something and are actually giving proper advice and valuable advice that people are willing to pay for. And so I think that value is quite rewarding, and feeling like you actually have something, something to share that is an expertise and a technical skill that clients need to resolve their disputes and move on with their business. I mean, certainly no client is looking to kind of just settle into the dispute and kind of ride it out. They want this off their books. And so being able to kind of be that counsel to support that and move their dispute forward so they can get on with their work is something that's quite satisfying.
Now, Chiann, you were an adjunct professor at Hong Kong University from 2014 to 2016, and you have also been a guest lecturer at many universities: Sciences Po, Yale, Stanford, Georgetown, City University of Hong Kong, Keio, Seoul National University, Tsinghua University, and the University of International Business and Economic Law School in Beijing. What is the most valuable lesson you gained as a professor?
I think that one of the most valuable lessons is that you're always learning something yourself, no matter, that you're being brought into the room to teach, but actually as you prepare to teach, you're always learning. And I have taught a handful of courses, as an intro to arbitration, but even those types of courses have been helpful in helping me, further, inform me about different areas of arbitration. What I've enjoyed in recent years, and I don't have like a full-time adjunct professorship at the moment, but what I do enjoy is guest lecturing, because what that allows me to do is take one particular topic that I think is relevant, it's come across in certain cases, but I haven't necessarily had time to kind of hone in on it. And so when I have the luxury of choice in what I'm teaching, I will take that particular point and spend the time to research it and then be able to share it with students. And I think that that's something that I've found to be really rewarding.
What difficulties or even failures taught you the most in your career?
Yeah, I would say that no one particular failure or difficulty has taught me, but at each turning point in my career, and I think I would have had more turning points than the average person. I've thought that actually being able to take risks and being okay with failure is a huge thing that I've learned about myself, and given me the courage to try harder things and try things that are, above my pay grade or far reaches than one might expect, and be okay that, you can try really hard and things might not succeed, but actually that whole process is a learning experience. So I would say that all of the various kind of difficulties and failures that I've kind of had over the years have only made me more resilient to failure.
Yes.
That's
So-
beautifully said.
Yes, indeed.
So Chiann, you currently served as the Vice President of the ICC Court of International Arbitration. Could you please tell us more about this role?
Yeah, so I have been a vice president for just about 3 years, and I'm about to start my second term.
Mhm.
And it has been, I mean, such an eye-opening experience because, as you will both know, not all institutions are created equally, or they're all different and uniquely structured. And so having worked for one institution does not necessarily mean that you will appreciate all the inner workings of another institution. And so what I have really enjoyed about this particular role is the opportunity to focus on the substance of the court work. Most of the work that I do as vice president is chairing committee sessions. And so that means reviewing awards, reviewing procedural decisions, dealing with challenges, and all the stuff that is like the meaty stuff of working at an institution. And so I've really enjoyed that aspect of it. On top of that, all the vice presidents and the president will meet as a bureau regularly to discuss strategy, court-related policies, and other kind of developments that help the work, facilitate the work of the court. And then of course there's, I guess, the business development and the promotional aspect, which is not necessarily I would say a mandatory part of the job, but certainly over the years in Asia, you know, speaking and engaging with users and the like is something that I have done fairly regularly as well. So, I mean, it can be quite a time-intensive responsibility or a time-intensive role, but you get what you put into it. In that I've learned a lot about the institution, and a lot of the substantive work has been particularly rewarding.
That's great.
Now, Cheyenne, you are a first-generation Chinese American raised in United States. During your career, have you experienced any type of gender bias, and have you been discriminated against due to your ethnicity?
Yeah, good question, and it's hard to say actually and pinpoint a particular moment where, you know, I know I've been, you know, discriminated against. I am sure I have been. I mean, it's very difficult to kind of deny that there have been uncomfortable moments where I wonder about that. And oftentimes I'm not sure whether it's the ethnic element or the gender element or the age element that kind of that kind of impacted whatever the circumstances made me feel uncomfortable. And I have to say, it's often easy to attribute one of these factors to sort of why, you know, I might not have gotten certain opportunities or why things might not have worked out one way or the other. But at the same time, and I would be very quick to kind of note this, is that I am sure that I've gotten opportunities that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten, but for the fact that I am diverse in all these various ways.
Okay.
And so it's a complicated issue, right? Like it's something that I'm still reflecting on, and in short, I don't want to necessarily lean on all the negatives.
Right.
I don't want to necessarily lean on all the particularly discriminatory moments as to why I'm not X, Y, Z or whatever. At the end of the day, there's not much you can do about that particular moment. I mean, unless it's egregious, I think we as ethnic minority people are oftentimes kind of learning from those moments, but not necessarily speaking to those moments. But what you can do as you gain a voice in the community is to make sure that others aren't treated that way, and that you offer opportunities to those who wouldn't otherwise have opportunities, so that you can better spread, you know, opportunities to a wider range of people. And so I think that that's the best you can do with that type of scenario. Obviously, there are moments to speak up, but I have not encountered any particular moment that has made me feel that to be necessary, but rather I've appreciated those opportunities that I have gained and realized that actually all I have to do to kind of make myself feel better is to pay it forward.
Yeah, thank you for that. Indeed.
Sorry. Well, Chiann, thank you so much for being our guest today. It's really lovely to see you and to hear more about your career and all the roles that you have and had and have. Yeah, I guess we will let you go. We know it's late in Singapore now.
But before we let you go, I don't know if you're getting ready to go watch some Netflix before you go to bed. Is that what you're going to do, Cheyenne? Are you a Netflix fan? Netflix.
What?
Netflix.
Oh, a Netflix fan. Yes, I am. I'm watching Calm
So we need to
Agent
know
right
what
now.
team are you on? What team are you on? Is it what we would like to talk about today? Suits or How to Get Away with Murder?
Oh,
Any legal shows at all?
that I'm watching Call My Agent right now, so that's not illegal. But I would say have the second one, because I wasn't a big fan of Suits. So.
No? Okay.
That's good. Call My Agent, it's John Beach's favorite.
Oh.
And it's my favorite too, actually. So it's a great show.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that. We always like to have a little fun with that. And thank you once again for joining us on Arbitration Life.
Great. I wish I were there physically. So hopefully next time we're before long.
Yes, we're looking forward to welcoming you to BVI for sure.
Fantastic. All right. Good to see you all. And thank you again.
Okay. Thank you, Chiann. Bye.
Bye. Many thanks to Chiann Bao for taking the time out of her busy schedule to talk to us here on Arbitration Life.
Yes, thank you, Chiann. And for more Arbitration Life, please be sure to hit the subscribe button and to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Arbitration Life.